I know everyone is busy, so thank you all for making time to connect tonight and chat. As people continue to join, I'll let them in as they enter the Zoom meeting. And if there are any issues, people can obviously reach out to Steph or I, and we'll send notes after the meeting and stay in contact. And I think, typically we'll just spend a couple minutes doing the general.
Why is the microphone on? Why is it done?
Hey, Lisa, can you hear us okay?
Can I ask Lisa? Can I ask Lisa something off the record? Lisa, are you related to the Sam Summers? Lisa?
Oh, she might not have heard you, Mr. Bill. It looked like she just left the meeting.
Oh, okay.
But she's about to sign back in, so we can.
I'll get her when she comes back.
Yeah. In the meantime, just a couple of general updates that we always try to provide, just so that everyone can be heard. If you're not talking, if you could mute your mic, that would be great. Please take care of yourself. If you need to get a snack or use the restroom or check in on the kids or whatever, please feel free to get up, leave the meeting, come back, join, as you please. And we are recording the meeting so that we can share it with folks who are not able to attend. And if you have any issues with that, please let us know. Tonight, I think we just want to start by giving a general and quick intro and general update, and then we'll revisit some of the conversation that we had back in August when we last had a kind of meeting and a workshop around the Vare essence and social space, and then we'll move into an activity building on that for kind of our Vare social space part 2 conversation tonight. So just as a general update, and some of you may have seen this in the email that Steph sent in the bi-weekly last week. I think this construction schedule is something that we are working with Rebuild on and Parks and Rec to try and get finalized so that we can share more detail moving forward. But in general, we at least wanted to make sure that there was sufficient info about the construction schedule and program relocation, because I think there have been a number of questions about that. And it's also really exciting, Will, to hear that that there are programs happening again at Vare. So really happy to hear that. We expect construction to start sometime in late summer or fall of next year, 2021. So that would mean that program relocation wouldn't have to happen until like spring or summer of next year, 2021. So for the fall, any programs that are operating at site now should be good. The Parks and Rec does have an engineer come and inspect the building. That engineer, I believe, comes monthly and provides a report to the city. And so there are, I think those reports, while they're not like shared publicly, if there were any concerns that came from the reports, MTWB would be notified. I think Will, you, and George, of course, would be notified, and we could share info that way. So in general, that's the timeline that we're moving forward. If there are any questions or thoughts about it, we can talk about them a bit now. If you want to reach out to either Steph or I directly and discuss that timeline, please feel free. We're always available for those conversations. Does anyone have questions about the timeline in general?
When did they
outside of?
Okay.
Oh,
go ahead, Mr. Bill. Go ahead, Mr. Bill.
Start doing construction on the building. Is that any certain date or in the future or what?
Mr. Bill, I'm sorry, I had a bit of a hard time hearing you, but did you ask when they're starting construction on the building?
Right.
Yeah, so the demolition of the building is likely to start next summer, 2021. It could be late summer or early fall.
Okay.
Warren, did you also have a question?
Yeah, was that delay in construction, is that 100% due to COVID, or was it something else?
it's not 100% due to COVID. COVID definitely has played a part in it. The other delays are really related to design review and the project budget discussions that are happening with the city. So for example, the pool was one of them, where there was the potential that the pool was being removed from the project, and then conversations with the city where they were trying to find additional money or get approval to move forward with the pool. Some conversations that are happening now are around, the building size and square footage, and the outdoor spaces, and then just the city review and approval of drawings for our team to move the drawings forward so that they meet all the city requirements and standards has been a process, where there's been a lot of back and forth communication, and there continues to be.
Okay.
That being said, we're kind of like 2 design phases in, and we have 2 design phases left. So we'll continue, pushing that forward as we get approval from the city. In the meantime, I think the discussions that we're going to have tonight and in the next few workshops can still help the design team move those drawings forward. And then, the city, we're in communication with them, and they will review and approve and provide feedback as we submit design deliverables over the next 12-ish weeks. So really the timeline of summer, fall 2021 for construction starting is, that it's accurate as of now. When it comes to program relocation, I know there were already some suggestions about where certain programs could go. For example, like if the basketball program could potentially go to Smith or across the street from Smith, if it was indoor or outdoor. There might be ideas that folks have about where gymnastics can go. And so we'll keep talking to Parks and Rec and try and bring Parks and Rec to one of these conversations, their operations department, so that community members can have input on where those programs get relocated to. If there are ideas about relocation, please feel free to let me know, and I'll make sure that we have a list that we can share with the city of places that community members would like programs to go to.
Does the city have anything to do with that gym down there on in Wilson Project? Or is that the?
That's I don't I don't know if they're I think they're through PHA, I think.
Housing projects.
I think so. At the community center, Wilson Park Community Center. I think that may be affiliated with them. I did have a question. With the relocation of programming, is the city, well, I don't know if you know, but are they just looking for places that will be able to operate on a free basis, or are they willing to, pay for usage of locations?
Yeah, it took my question. I'm out.
That's a good question, Anthony. I don't know. They haven't shared with us their relocation plans or budget, if they have a budget. I think there are conversations that we can have with the city as a group that might influence some of that, where we know that kids in programs, especially like some of the after school or the youth or teen programs, that location may be top priority above all things, whether or not kids can access those programs. But in terms of renting facilities, they haven't shared any info with us about that.
Do you know if that's a practice that has been used in the past, or are you just not aware of that?
I've never heard of it. All the relocation that they've shared with us when they've mentioned other sites has always been like moving a program from one rec center to another rec center,
Okay.
never to like a private facility.
Gotcha. The reason I was asking is because I know that the Salvation Army may be a location for basketball, and also their middle school may be a location, but they're not Parks and Recs things. And if we're looking for something in the community, close by, then I don't know if there may have to be some kind of deals brokered or whatever. But I just think that we want to keep everybody kind of close, because there are boundaries and issues that limit certain people from getting around. So if you put a program somewhere where they can't get to, it's like not even having a program.
Hey, Juan.
Yes.
Have you ever checked, because over there at 25th and Snyder, you know, I don't think the charter school is going to have a football team. Newman just got hit with the virus. I think it's a couple of teams that's not going to be not going to be using that field over there. Did you realize that?
Yeah. Yeah. We got a good relationship over there with Smith. So we actually do have usage over there.
Yeah, the Recs in South Philly or in, you know, the west side of South Philly have been really good to us. So we haven't really had to battle issues where we can't use fields. We're able to kind of spread out and divide our teams up in a different location, so we're not over the cohort limit.
Thanks, Anthony. That's helpful. Yeah, I'm just throwing some of these comments in the chat bar in the notes so that we have them recorded, and we can continue the conversation with Parks and Rec when their operations team is available to discuss it, because I think these are all important notes and good suggestions.
Okay.
Great. So I think moving forward a bit tonight with the conversation around Vare Essence, I think most of the people who are on the call were actually on the first social space conversation. And in that conversation, we started considering kind of like space and time and thinking about the Vare Essence and how people might want to enjoy that, whether they'd like to enjoy it with themselves or alone, or with themselves alone or with others, or maybe both. We heard that all three of those things are desirable, and in particular, some specific stories around the goal of being able to like recharge and recenter, and that having space for like reading or meditation where someone can relax with a cup of tea near plants and arts and crafts, that those areas and spaces from an adult perspective might be really important and useful. And we've also heard in that same meeting that spending time with adults and spending time with youth, whether it be gaming or gathering or celebrating or exercising, were all really desirable ways to spend time. And I think one really important conversation that happened, and Anthony, it might have been you that kind of brought this point up, that you recognize that the youth really like to have both active and passive spaces to kind of like navigate or negotiate or decide how much they want to interact or don't want to interact, and that some of the youth might be at site for a program and others might be at site just because it's a safe place for them to be.
Right.
Yeah, and so I think also another key point that came out of that last discussion was this idea of key spaces for playing games and the importance of flexibility in those. And Mike, I think you had mentioned, you know, having the opportunities for gaming to happen outside without having to move pieces inside and outside would provide some flexibility for the youth and for program leaders, and how important that kind of flexibility, as well as like the flexibility of a specific space is, so that it's a space that can be used for like for team gathering or team camp, or like a program like Tattoo for Pastor Dave. And so from those conversations, I think our goal tonight is to take it one step further and really dive into like specific spaces at Vare, the way that it's designed, and think about how might a space for recharging like differ on site from a place or a space for celebrating or a place for sports. And I think some of the places for sports are already very clearly defined, maybe better defined than some of the spaces for recharging, for example, or spaces for, you know, celebrating or gathering. And so tonight, I think we're we're going to spend the next like half hour about just talking about some specific spaces and the kinds of things that people think they would like to do there, or that you would imagine youth and adults either separate or together doing there. And maybe Lauren, could you just touch on for a minute or a couple sentences, like how
Sure.
this conversation will help or influence KDI's work as we move forward into DD?
Yeah, absolutely. So good evening, everyone. For those of you that I've met, it's nice to see you again. For those of you that I haven't met, my name's Lauren. I work with KDI, and along with Sarah and Steve, who are both on the call too, we'll be doing the design for the landscape, so everything outside of the building. You're probably wondering why I'm wearing a tank top. I actually live in Los Angeles and it's 100 degrees here. So that's part of the reason why we're working with Steve and Sarah, who are based in Philly. But to your point, Ken, the information that you all are giving us is really invaluable. Like, we have a same philosophy as MDWB does, in that we're really helping to draw and design and build this space, not for us, but for you all, in the way that you imagine yourself, your grandparents, your kids' kids, I don't know, 20 years, 30 years from now, using that space. And so as we get into thinking about each one of these spaces, how do you want it to function? How do you want it to feel? Like, as much specificity as you can think of would be amazing. And we'll sort of take that and run with it. And obviously you all will be involved in sort of fine tuning those designs. But at the base of it, this information will go directly into how we're thinking of the spaces. Because right now, in the site plans that you all have seen, there's placeholders for playgrounds, the pool, a community plaza. But really, those spaces, there's a lot of detail that we can still get into around, like, do you want it to be a space that you can hang out with 10 people just by yourself? And then that influences how we place benches, how we place planting, what types of materials we use. So all of this really helps to ground the work that we're doing. So yeah, sorry, that was more than a couple sentences, Ken. But really looking forward to the conversation.
Thanks, Lauren. Yeah, it's helpful to hear just how I think some of these conversations will shape things. So tonight, I'm gonna share screen. If anyone can't see the screen when I share it, if you want to just throw it in the chat, or feel free to speak up, please. I'll just share so that we can start talking about some of these verbs that we looked at a couple weeks ago. Great. Can everyone see my screen okay? Cool. Thank you. So yeah, I think the conversations a couple weeks ago started looking at these ideas of celebrating, gathering, coming together, gaming, playing, watching other people playing, or potentially like exercising or relaxing. And when we're thinking about these words, I think tonight something we're hoping to do is to look at, the site the way it's designed now. And in the current design, we have the building down in the southeast corner near 26th and more. And at that building, there's the front entry area. There's a hangout space, or it's currently being called the stoop, out back. And then there's an area being held near the pool for intergenerational play. And so that entry area is right by the main entrance at 26th and more. The stoop is just outside the back entrance of the building and partially overlooks, some like plaza area, potentially like water play or spray ground, and potentially overlooks parts of the football field or the sports field as well. And then there's the intergenerational space, which is kind of a connector piece for a number of spaces. It connects to the entrance to Vare off of Morris, It is right up against the pool. Obviously, there will be a fence around the pool for safety and security, but it also kind of ties in and connects pretty closely to the basketball courts. And all that being said, it is still a space of its own that's going to have really its own kind of like feel and identity. And so we were hoping to spend a few minutes just talking about each of these spaces, how people, which verbs seem to be important or identifiable in those areas. And then kind of like just have open discussion about it where we can hear what you feel about those spaces and how those spaces might be important to you all or other community members that you may have talked to or have heard from. And we'll go from there and continue the conversation by possibly showing some imagery in a follow-up conversation, or if we have time for it tonight. So I think first, again, just like taking a look at some of these verbs, celebrating, gathering, playing, reading, or studying. I think something's helpful to hear about is just how those spaces might change. Is the place for celebration the same as the place for relaxing or studying? And if we're thinking about the site plan, it's probably best for us to start with the main entrance. And I know a lot of us haven't been to Vare in a while. Will, you might be the exception, and Warren and Anthony. But I think, something that's always struck me about the entrance of Vare is that the steps are a place where people hang out, and that is like some of the guys that are adults who play basketball, some of the kids who are at Vare, a lot of them kind of hang out right outside the front door. And it's kind of a place where people are able to welcome each other. In the new building, I'm curious to hear thoughts about what the entrance plaza or the open area leading up to the front door, how some of you all feel that might best serve. Is it a place to gather? Is it a place for like celebration or a lot of liveliness? Is it a quiet place, a place to relax? So I think that's a great place to start. If anyone has thoughts on, just what that entrance is now and what that entrance can or should be, we would love to hear it.
Hey, everyone. Hi, this is Tiffany, Councilman Johnson's office. Native of South Philly, of course, and I've been at Vare a couple times throughout my life and childhood. I'm always looking for something different. I know when you go into the entrance of Vare, it's the steps there, and like you said, people hang out. I would like to see something a little bit different, only because, different and change is always good. And, sometimes we tend to stick and stay to what we've always seen before, but this is going to be an exciting project. So I think maybe making an entrance a little bit different, maybe, I don't know, without the steps. I'm not good with design and stuff like that, but just something different, something eye-catching. I don't know if I could look at some things, even myself online, and say, hey, this might be a good idea to kind of look at. I think that would be good. And plus Vare is like a popping place. So like a lot of the youth in the neighborhood, Vare is like the hangout spot. So, something different, something new will kind of help encourage our young people, to look at something different. So, and then we also got to remember too, like memories of people that might have passed away and that used to be there and not there anymore. And it's like going into that door the same, just something different, something new, exciting, to kind of like, you want to keep those memories of those that may have passed away in our neighborhood from gun violence and things of that. But, just something different to kind of get the kids some hope,
Yeah, thank you, Tiffany. I really appreciate you sharing that. I think that's something Miss Case, the caretaker at Vare, has often mentioned as well, that tying the community and the community's narrative throughout the site, whether it be the entrance, the building, or even the site, like the site proper, and thinking about how there can be a lot of connections to people who have made Vare the place that it is. A couple things you said, I think stand out a little bit. You mentioned that, Vare is just kind of a place that's popping, and that, there's a lot. I hear that as like energy, that at the entrance that there are people there, and that you feel that it is communicated as soon as you get there, that this is a high energy place, and that there's a lot of positive activity.
And I was even thinking while you're talking, I'm sorry to cut you off, Ken.
No, you're good.
Even affirmations, like our youth need to kind of see affirmations. Like today I was somewhere for an appointment, and everything that's going on with, especially gun violence in our community and stuff, like our kids need to see some like positive messaging. So maybe like when they're walking in the door, there may be some positive messaging somehow that we can engrave on the wall, or I don't know. I'm just, just trying to, bring some hope alive with our kids so they could be motivated and energized and feel like, this is a new place and we're going to take care of it. That type of mentality is always good to kind of instill in our youth. So yeah, that's something that came across my mind as well. Sorry about that.
No, please don't apologize. Thank you.
Can I say something?
Yes, Mr. Bill, please.
I think the interest is, you come in there, you wanna have something in there for them to look at, right? But you wanna keep it moving. They go on a certain in the gym or the exercise room. You don't want no congregating in that section of the building. They want to, they could stop for a minute or whatever and look around and see some of the archives or whatever. But they got to be, after they do that, they got to be going to a certain spot in the building. That way, it won't be no hanging.
Thanks, Mr. Bill. Are you, your concerns about people hanging there? I guess I have just like a question or two for clarification. So like right now, or not right now, but pre-COVID, right? A lot of the basketball guys would kind of be hanging. Like some people would be kind of sitting on the railing of the steps. Some people would be standing on the steps. Some people would be out front, kind of just like positioned on their cars, leaning or saying hi to folks that are pulling up. Is your concern about hanging related to just any kind of issues that might arise for like, are you concerned about violence like Tiffany mentioned?
Right, you have kids that this is a new age, this is a new generation. You got kids that just might want to hang around in that section of the hallway. And they're not about anything. And you don't want to start that. Because that's trouble. Like I said, this is a different generation. It's not like back in the day where the kids come in and enjoy a place. Everybody, the kids, you got some kids always looking for a hangout.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Bill. So I think it's helpful to understand that those safety concerns are absolutely present, and we should not forget about them. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, try to also make sure that it's designed so that it's a place that can convey that energy. I guess, does anyone else have thoughts about folks gathering out front the building?
I did have some thoughts. I think that the new entrance should be very welcoming, well lit, and like really open, like not where everything is like tight little corridors or anything like that, but like even from the outside with the steps and all of that stuff, I think that there should definitely be a lot of space involved with this. And I see that there are like a lot of trees and stuff in the design. I know that's kind of just the design phase, but we definitely want to have that area that the rec center is going to be situated on is kind of dark over there. So we definitely want to have it well lit and open so that safety
is paramount, obviously, but we also want to have it welcoming. You know, it's kind of intimidating when you walk up on something that's kind of dark and you don't know what's going on. So the more open it is and the more well lit it is, I think will definitely be beneficial to safety and also to the environment that you know, we want to kind of convey coming from there.
Yeah, thank you, Anthony.
Sorry, can you let Yasmin in to the room? I think she texted me that she's in the waiting room.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steph. Thanks, Anthony. Yeah. So I guess then a question now, like some of the folks that hang out front of Vare, if the new entrance is welcoming, do you think it's still a place for some smaller groups of people to be able to hang out? Yeah.
Well, I think that it still would be a space for people to kind of hang out. I know a lot of kids that we have that, you know, we may have meetings in there. A lot of kids will kind of come outside and just sit outside for a little bit to get some air. Even with adults, you know, kind of just hanging outside, like they're around, but they're not around. You know, definitely don't want to close it off and say, oh, you can't sit here. But just the fact of the lighting and the openness will kind of deter, in my opinion, some of the undesirable aspects that can be attributed to, you know, that kind of environment where it's not as well lit and there's not as much eyes to be seen or things being wide open, and it's kind of hidden and you know, just it shows people that, okay, this is a place to hang out. This is a place almost like this is a safe haven. So none of the foolishness will be tolerated here. Obviously there'll be cameras and all that type of stuff, but I just think that the welcoming part and the openness is going to be definitely beneficial because, you know, I know basketball sometimes uses it as a staging area. The gymnastics team, if they're going somewhere, they kind of stage from there. Football, we stage from there as well. So we don't want to kind of close it off. So that's kind of where I foresee it.
Yeah, thank you, Anthony. That's actually super helpful, the stationing and the staging. I think I was there once when you all were getting ready to go on a trip to either Virginia or Florida for a football tournament.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And there were a lot of people gathering along more there, getting ready to leave. So if there is space where folks can kind of get together and organize, you would think that this might be the right spot for that.
Yeah, I mean, we still actually use it now. Like whenever we leave to go out of state or whatever, we'll stage right there anyway, right in that actual spot.
Great, thank you. That is super helpful also. Cool. So I think in general, what I'm hearing is that it should be a place that is welcoming, a place where people, I really like the way you put it, Anthony, that people could be around but not around, where like they kind of have their own decision-making ability to say like, I want to step away and either be involved or not be involved and kind of decide how much they want to be involved at that point. So really like that staging and gathering is kind of like a prep to go somewhere else, but that this is not like a space that is for like large scale, like celebration or gathering. If at any point I'm misunderstanding or we are misunderstanding, please let me know. This is super helpful. Does anyone else have anything to share about the main entrance, or would it be okay to move on to the planned kind of stoop seating area at the rear of the building? All right. So this area that's being called the community stoop, it is intended to be kind of a multi-purpose space. I think it's a place to, as it was designed, it was a place to kind of sit and gather. But we also know that right outside or right out back the building, there's going to be a playground space. There's going to be water play happening nearby. There's going to be, you know, football and other sports happening at the field. And so thinking about,
not to cut you off, but is there any way you could kind of maybe like show exactly where this is situated at? I know this is a blow up of the location, but kind of go back to this? Okay, all right.
Yeah, so thank you, Anthony. So if we're looking at the building, again, at like 26th and more, if you exit the rear of the building, and if I zoom in here, this community stoop is sitting, right up against the building, but between kind of a little bit of everything. The sports or athletic field is just to the west. The playground is just to the east. The basketball courts to the northeast, the pool to the north. So it is a pretty central location in the site and in the redesign. And so, yeah, I think thinking about that, granted, the way that this has been proposed, and it's still, we're in schematic design, it's still pretty loose and can be adjusted and changed. I think part of what we're trying to have a conversation about is being central to the site. Is this the spot for kind of for lounging or relaxing or getting away to a quiet place? Or is it more of a spot for communal gathering? Is it a spot that is, people can sit and they can watch maybe, but is it vibrant? Is there a lot of energy and activity here? Or is it a space that, people think should be reserved for kind of some quiet relaxation or meditation or rejuvenating? And one other thing that I would add is that some of the times that I've been to Vare, the way that the back of the building has been used, sometimes that I've been there that I've noticed, some folks will hang out near like George's office or Will's office, but right outside, obviously underneath that fencing. But I've seen folks kind of hanging there and overlooking basketball or overlooking the football field. Sometimes people are paying attention to a specific program. Sometimes people are just kind of kicking it. Like I know that Mooney's been there a bunch of times and has used it for kind of a spot to, I think, accept like sign-up sheets or registration for basketball leagues, where he might just hang there until folks show up and submit some materials. And there's kind of like you're a little bit elevated right now, like when you step out the back of the building there and you can see over some stuff. And so I think part of the design is trying to recreate that a little bit. Is it right? Is it wrong? I don't know. Does anybody have thoughts on like the kind of energy or the kinds of groups, the sizes of groups that might like to hang there? Is it 2 people sitting together, or is it, 8 people sitting together?
I think this space right here will be, I don't know. I'm kind of up in the air on that particular space and that concept. Simply because it's almost like the rear of the building. I know it's kind of in between football. It's in between the park. Maybe a kind of area that people could kind of hang out, maybe take pictures or kind of just kind of relax, like you said. I'm up in the air on it. I don't know, because when you look at the back of Vare now, it's the steps. You come down the steps and you're either going towards the basketball court or you're facing a pool or the side where the other playground is. I don't know. I think the energy it's depending on what else is surrounding it. Like right now, I just kind of see the trees and stuff, and the area in between. Is this like a playground in between this area as well?
Yeah, Anthony, if you are in this area, like you are between essentially the football field and the playground. And, a lot of the details about the playground are not worked out yet. But yeah, you're it's almost equal distance to both of them. But you are right next to the rear entrance to the building.
Okay. I mean, I can kind of envision the space. Sibo.
Okay.
Sorry, Anthony, were you finished? It cut off a little bit. I just want to make sure we heard everything you were saying.
Yeah, I'm headed home and my son is driving, so safety first, seatbelts.
License or?
Yeah, he's got his permit.
Okay.
So,
I appreciate you participating so much with all that going on. That's a lot.
Yeah. But I kind of see, I can actually envision a space where people may be hanging out and kind of like, just relaxing after they're finished with basketball or after they're finished with sports. Maybe they don't want to go inside the building and they're kind of right there, just getting ready for the next thing, whatever that thing is, whether they're going home, whether they're going to play another game, or they're just kind of just there, just watching everybody else.
Thanks, Anthony. Yeah, that's really helpful. This space, I think something that we've talked about and we've heard feedback from the city on is, just if this space it's out in the open, and so people can sit and view and watch others. I guess a question around the potential for small or large groups. Some of some of the different elevations of this might not allow the space to be used for like really large gathering. But I think there's a question of like the kids that you are mentioning or the youth that you're mentioning that like to be around or not around. What kind of group sizes are those? Is it usually 10 kids together or 5? And thinking about making sure that there's space for, some different size groups that might gather. And that's something that we can discuss more moving forward. Just out of sake of time, I want to make sure that we chat a little bit about the intergenerational space. And so just for reference, this space kind of sits a little bit north of the community stoop, again, between the athletic fields and the basketball courts, and it is right near the pool also. Again, you won't be able to access the pool from this space. There will be a fence surrounding the pool, but it will be nearby. The way that it's loosely drawn now, it is a series of smaller tables and some planting areas under some shaded trees. And really, I think we're looking at this space and asking questions about how people want to gather with youth or how youth want to gather together in this intergenerational space. Is it often a parent with multiple kids or a guardian with multiple kids? Or is it a bunch of kids together? And thinking about the way that those spaces or what ends up in those spaces can accommodate some different sizes of groups.
Was there any thought in this this intergenerational space in terms of our seniors, like grandmoms and grandpops or elderly who are taking care of some youth or their grandchildren or what have you? Is there something that is kind of integrated in thinking about them as well, in terms of the benches or where they're going to be sitting? I just thought about that because there is a lot of grandparents who are raising their grandchildren, and some are in, unfortunate situations where they have to step up and be the parent. But I'm always thinking about our seniors who are out here or just taking their grandkids to the park, not that a parent is missing all the time or absent, I should say, but yeah, that's just a thought out there.
Yeah, thank you, Tiffany. It is helpful to think about. Lauren, could you just touch on any of the thought that was given to this general location and access?
Sure. So just overall in the site, the whole area will be ADA or handicap accessible. So it's definitely something we're thinking about in terms of how could people who maybe don't walk as well or have a disability could access all the spaces in the site. That said, for this specific area, it is sort of in the middle of a lot of activity of the pool, the basketball courts, and the playground. So we sort of saw it as potentially a space that could be a little quieter, but could still be able, you could be able to see everything that's going on. So there's the ability for those sort of more relaxing times, but you don't feel like the kids or whoever you're taking care of have suddenly disappeared and you can't see them anymore. One thing we had been thinking about, and maybe this is a question just to put you on the spot, Tiffany, is to design for the seniors that do use Vare, what are the types of things that they'd like to use? Like, I don't know, do they like playing chess, or are there things that could be specific spaces where there's that ability to do something with the grandkids or the kids that you're hanging out with? And what is it that people like to do in those areas? Or is it more just being able to have comfortable places to sit that aren't like uncomfortable metal benches that you sometimes find in parks?
I would say the uncomfortable part. Only I sit on the board at Wharton Square Park, across the street from my home, and just having a comfortable place to sit, when they're out there with the youth, or with their grandkids or whomever. So I'm always thinking about comfortability. That's why I mentioned it with the senior, And then on my other hat with working with the councilman, we have gotten calls in the past from our elderly constituents, there's nowhere to sit comfortably, when they go to the parks. I mean, I've had that call maybe one or two times throughout working with constituents, but that's just really what it was, just comfortability. I don't know any particular, I'm not familiar with that part of Vare in terms of any particular seniors doing anything specifically over there, but yeah, just comfortability, really.
Thanks, Tiffany. And I think the one question that we can think about as a group, either today or in a future meeting, is, just because you're, whatever it is, over 60 doesn't mean you also don't like to play anymore. I think a lot of parks think about play as like teenagers and under, but it's something important for all of us, and we all do it in different ways. It doesn't necessarily mean we're all jumping on trampolines, but
right.
That's something we can also think about to make sure that the way that we design the space is something that the older folks in the community would be interested in taking part in. But I totally hear what you're saying around just making sure everyone's comfortable and able to sit in a relaxing space, and able to sort of like, chill out for a minute.
I did have a question as well. Is there any, I sent a couple pictures to Steph. Ken, I'm not sure if she sent them to you as well.
Yep.
But it was one of the area at 57th and Vine. They have like a covered outdoor area, almost like a pavilion type of thing that, they utilize if it's raining or, something's going on in the weather, or even if it's just too sunny. They actually utilize that space. I thought that would be a great space that we could have as well, just as some kind of sheltered outdoor space. And the other thing was I sent some pictures of their chess board into like a seating area as well. So it was almost like a whole chess table. It was cement. It also had cement seating. I know that's not the most comfortable thing, but that was an area that could also be utilized. Were you aware of that? Or any of you guys seen those pictures?
Yes, Anthony. Thank you. Yes, Steph did share them. We shared them with the design team, and actually I could probably I know we're a little short on time, but I could probably share them right now. So these are the photos that Anthony shared with us of just some seating areas and like a pavilion, like a covered space. I think with some of the materials, as Anthony mentioned, might not be the most comfortable, but there's also creative ways that people have made those areas more comfortable by bringing like their own camp chairs. So I think we recognize that those materials could be more comfortable. But also it's really interesting, Anthony, that like this chess or checkers table has 2 seats to it. It looks like people have brought 2 seats to sit around what is supposed to be another seat, with the camp chairs. So
or maybe they use it as a coffee table or something while they're sitting outside.
Yeah, exactly. So I think some of the vibes that we got from these photos that you sent are like that these gaming areas are kind of intimate, that they're not like, it's not like a massive game being played where there are like 10 or 12 people around, but really it's like 2 to 4 people, maybe a couple people sitting, maybe a couple people also like hanging or hovering a little bit, obviously in a friendly way. But I think those are kind of the ideas that we've gotten around spacing. Does that sound right for a gaming area where seniors might be, or where guardians might be, with youth, whether that be children or grandchildren or nieces, nephews? Yeah.
I mean, I remember growing up right across from Wharton Square where Tiffany lives at, and the older guys would be out there with their chess table on their laps. They had a bench, but it had concrete pillars, but it was a wooden bench, and it was kind of like an area where they just hung out at. They just hung out, and sometimes it was intimate with those 2 people, but other times there were others gathered on the outskirts of them as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Anthony.
I'm quite sure people bring their own chair. That's no problem. You can't make seats for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Mr. Bill. That I think both what you and Anthony are saying is that even if the space is designed for 2 people, it shouldn't be so strict that it can't accommodate more. That there needs to still be some flexibility. Is that right?
Yeah, right. You bring your own chair. I keep a chair in the back of my car.
You're ready for it.
You find me sitting anywhere.
Yep. I also have a folding chair in the back of my car, Mr. Bill. You never know when a hangout is going to happen, right?
Right,
yeah. That's really helpful how that, thank you both for sharing those ideas. It's really helpful for understanding how some small spaces can very quickly turn into something that is for a bit of a larger group or a bit of a larger community than just 2 folks. Thank you. And then Anthony, just for clarification on the pavilion photo, was that really just intending to share that it was important to have a space where there was some shelter and some shade and a way to kind of get away from either the rain or the heat, anything like that?
Yeah, I think that
I don't think it should be overlooked. Create some kind of outdoor. I think it'd be great and for everybody. And even if it's raining outside, they just don't want to be in the house. That gives them a great opportunity and still have their space but they're not inside.
Thank you, Anthony. It broke up, at least on my end, it broke up a little bit, but what I heard you saying was that the kids are going to want to come to the playground no matter what. So if there's a space that can offer them, a bit of shelter from the elements, that would be really important.
Stephanie, you all right? Are you okay? This is the first time I heard you.
I'm just taking notes, Mr. Bill, in the background.
This is the first time I heard you not say nothing.
Oh no, I'm just taking notes. I'm listening. Don't worry. Thank you for checking, though.
Cool. Yeah, and Anthony, that shading or shelter element is something that we are talking with Parks and Rec about for just next to that intergenerational gaming space. the idea of having the two very close to each other seemed to make sense, where that gaming area could very quickly, the game could move under the shelter, or it could turn into like a small picnic or something like that.
Right. And, you know, I only brought it up. I didn't say, oh, I think that we should have exactly this, but maybe some type. I think that'd be very important though, because I don't know. That's the only park I have actually seen locally with an outdoor shelter.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Anthony. That is helpful. I think as a next step, because I know we're kind of at time, we had hoped either tonight or in the next meeting to then look at some images of what some of these spaces could look like and talk about those images to see, you know, does this one make sense? Do people like it? Just get some general kind of response or reaction to those images to influence things like color, materials, sizing, and move the design forward in that way. I think based on everything you all have shared tonight, that is a next step that makes sense. So I think we'll plan for that for the next meeting. Does anybody have any other thoughts on what we talked about tonight? And if you do right now, great. If you do and don't want to share right now, because it might require more time, that's fine. Again, Steph and I are happy to connect and touch base and have longer conversations when time allows. But just before we kind of end tonight, does anyone have any last thoughts to share? Great. Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for talking through some of this. I know it can be kind of random and it's pretty specific, but it's also really helpful in understanding, you know, just kind of how some of these spaces operate and making sure that we can start planning and pulling those images in a way that we can have, you know, more informed conversation about it moving forward.
No problem. Thanks, Ken. Everybody have a nice night.
Thanks, Lorraine. Nice meeting you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening.
Yep.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a good one.
Good seeing you, Will.
Okay.
See you later.
You too.